Good. Well, it's really good to be here again. My name is Suryagupta, and I'm doing a series of talks around the language of the depths, different ways to access the depths. And when I mean depths, I mean really sort of, what is most essential, what matters most, what gets us to the heart of things, the heart of ourselves, the heart of life, quickest, and also what gets us beneath the surface of our experience, what gets us beyond the rational, the conceptual, the obvious, as it were. And what gets beyond the rational and the conscious into really the sort of waters, the depths of the unconscious. And that's to say that it's in the unconscious, our subconscious, what lies beneath the surface, where most of us are. Most of our emotions are there, most of our knowledge is there, most of our potential is there. I mean, science has said that we only use a fraction, of our minds, our brains, really, and the rest of it is in this thing called the unconscious. And meditation is really a way to bring more of ourselves, more of our unconscious into the conscious. What lies outside our everyday, more into awareness. It actually can be a bit of a challenging process. I don't know how long you've been meditating for, but I was talking to someone today and they were saying that they meditated for a couple of years, and at the beginning it was all great, it's exciting, and then a certain point comes where they're just aware of so much that they've not been paying attention to, that so much emotions that they've just didn't even know they had is coming into awareness, and that can mean it can be a bit sort of actually that's when some people stop meditating as well, because suddenly it's like, oh, this isn't as easy as I thought. Actually I'm having to feel things, I'm having to see things that maybe in the past I've pushed away. But if you keep going, of course, the idea is we bring more of the unconscious into our conscious experience, and then actually our experience gets bigger. We get bigger. We see more, we become more aware of ourselves and more aware of others and more aware of life, itself. So it's all good if we can keep sort of remembering that, that actually we're just becoming bigger beings. Yes, I sort of spoke last week about the power of stories. Stories really just gives us a very vivid sense of ourselves, of life, and how life can play itself out. And Buddhist stories really point to the heart of things. And today I'm looking at symbols and the power of symbols to kind of really get to the heart of the matter. And with Buddhist symbols, I mean, people have used symbols from the beginnings of time, really. Prehistoric time, you had cave paintings and things. And those cave paintings were depicting important events that people really they wanted to be preserved, remembered. So that's where you get the paintings where, somebody's being chased by this great beast of some kind, and they're showing their escape routes, how they managed to overcome this great beast. But you also get the cave paintings that show quite symbols that actually people have spent quite a long time trying to decipher what those symbols mean. But they were certainly important, they keep recurring. And what they think now is that they were showing sort of religious experiences, or religious practices, or shamanic practices in some way. So something mysterious was trying to be communicated by the very early beings that were on this planet. So, but with Buddhist symbols, what their Buddhist symbols are really trying to show is the path of transformation. Something, trying to communicate something quite complex, potentially, something very deep, very profound, in a straightforward, tangible way. And they're communicating something about the path, something about the process of transformation, something about the nature of liberation, the nature of freedom. That's what they're trying to communicate, Buddhist symbols. And they're really wanting us to kind of, use these symbols really to see them so we can have a direct experience of something that really matters. So, so last week I spoke about the story I shared was the myth of the return journey. And it showed this whole journey really from the beginning of our wanting to discover, wanting to wake up, right through all the challenges, right through the process of transformation, right to the end of liberation. In a way, today, and there was a point in the story whereby this young man, he was kind of starting his process of transformation, and his job was to clear away a pile of dirt. There was this great mansion that, was his employers, if you like, were in the mansion. And he was too scared to go into the mansion. He felt that the mansion was too big for him. He felt that he was not good enough for the mansion. And so they said, well, all right, don't worry. Your job is to pile away, to clear away this huge mountain of dirt. And he was happier with that. And his whole process was learning how to doing that and then gradually becoming more and more curious about the mansion and gradually going in to the mansion and getting accustomed to it. So today, if you like, I said last week, if you're here, that we're going to be looking at, in a sense, what this pile of dirt really symbolised. It symbolises something about the challenge of what we're having to face when we start practicing. So Buddhist symbols, and that's a symbol, if you like, that's already a symbol right there. But Buddhist symbols were used from the very earliest time of Buddhism. So you had the first great phase of Buddhism, which was the early Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism, which is where the Buddha had died, has passed away, and people wanted to stay as close as possible to his experience. They told lots of stories about him and his disciples, and kept us, told about the lifestyle and the ethics. And then you had, after 500 years or so, then you had the Mahayana, the next great phase of Buddhism, which was saying, yes, it's good for people to sit on their cushions like the Buddha did, attain liberation, have individual liberation, but remember it's not all about the individual. Remember it's not just about a solitary being sitting under a tree. It's really about what you can do for all beings. So they said that they really brought out the compassionate aspect of the Buddha's experience. And they said the Buddha was really there to benefit as many beings as possible. So that's what we have to do, they said, this Mahayana phase. So we have to really broaden our imagination so vast, so big, that we're thinking not just of ourselves, but for all beings. And they had this ideal called the Bodhisattva ideal, where it was like a really advanced practitioner is meditating for themselves and for the benefit of others. So then that was a Mahayana, and they used lots of stories like the myth of the return journey. They used lots of images, they used lots of colour to just, in a way, to awaken our imagination so our minds would expand and we'd have a bigger vision for ourselves than just ourselves, our own liberation. And then you have the path of the way of the Vajrayana. Vajra means diamond thunderbolt, and yana means a way. So the Vajrayana was using a symbol called the vajra. So this is a vajra. Brought a small vajra along so you can see it. And you see it's identical sort of both sides. And it's got this point in the middle as well. And a vajra, it's diamond thunderbolt. It's really a symbol for transformation. And it really says that we can transform our negative experiences, our negative emotions, our feelings, can be harnessed into the positive. So anger, for example, sometimes we repress our anger. We think we shouldn't have anger, or we really indulge it. The Vajrayana tradition says, actually Buddhism says, and through this image it says, no, wait, there's so much energy in anger. If you think about it, when you're really angry, you're literally wanting to sort of boil, So it says, harness that, do something with it. Don't have to act on it. You don't have to act on the negative feelings, but use that energy, transform the energy into something positive, into something good. And so anger can become clarity. You know, you really see things very clearly. Anger, if you harness energy, can become determination, where you're really focused. So it was saying, you know, use your experience, use your everyday experience that you have to attain freedom, including your negative energies and emotions. The Vajrayana was very concerned. It was saying, look, these lofty ideals of, you know, being there for all beings and helping all beings attain liberation, that's great, but remember, we have this very life, this very body. And we don't know how long life's going to be. We don't know how long we're going to have this particular body. So we need to make use of all our experience. We need to make use of this very moment. Don't wait for you to be such a, you know, amazing being that you're working for the benefit of all. Do it now. Use your everyday experience. Use your ordinary experience. Use the stuff of your life to attain liberation. So it's very concerned with the quick method, it said, the quick and direct method. It said you should be able to attain liberation, freedom from suffering in this lifetime. But in order to do that, you've got to use everything at your disposal. And so the Vajra symbol, this symbol here, was like, you know, remember the possibility of transformation. And it's a diamond thunderbolt, because a diamond thunderbolt suggests that it's indestructible. So when you're really focused on liberation, when you're using all of your experience, every moment of your day, you know, then there's something indestructible about that focus, and the positive can be achieved. Freedom can be achieved. So that was a Vajrayana. And actually, really all Buddhist symbols, you know, say something helpful, important. You know, so this room is full of symbols. You've got the candles on the shrine, you know, they represent something. They represent light. You've got, if we have incense, that represents something. Even the very gestures that you sit with in meditation, that represents something. So, and there's lots of different gestures even. So it's almost like use everything, and everything can be symbolic. Everything can mean something around liberation. It's just the way you perceive. Yeah, you can see it as that's just a candle, or you can see it as the light of awareness. And all of your experience can be looked at through that kind of lens. So I've got the Vajra, showing you the Vajra. And the Vajra is a symbol that I sort of started carrying around with me. Like, I don't have it with me every day, but when I go away, you know, places, I make sure I have a Vajra with me. There's something about holding the Vajra that actually, you know, feels quite potent. It reminds me of what's possible. But I started carrying another symbol with me, another ritual object with me, and it's quite interesting. This object, I don't even know when I got the object. I don't know how it came into my possession. It was on my bookshelf for a very, very long time, and I would just move it around different bookshelves. And then one day I found this object. It started appearing. I must have moved it, of course, but it started appearing on my shrine. And I thought, didn't even know probably what it was. It just was there on my shrine. I liked the look of it. And then I must have found out it was called a phurba. And then one day I started holding it and interacting with it. And this is the thing about symbols. The more you engage with them, the more you understand its meaning, the more it has a bit of an effect, the more curious you become. You don't even have to conceptually, like I didn't know conceptually what this object was, but I became drawn to it, became sort of fascinated by it. So this is the phurba. This is my phurba. Here it is. And I went to a friend's house and they had the bigger version than mine. And I said, please, can I borrow it? Because I absolutely found it just Now, I have to say, if you hold this, you immediately, when I held it for the first time, I immediately felt different. I immediately felt this kind of power. My one's good. But this one felt great. It's quite strong. I just showed it to somebody in the office as well, and they were like, ooh. So what is a phurba? Well, you probably already see that, it's a dagger. It's a form of a dagger, yeah. It's sometimes known as a demon slayer, but it's a dagger. And it's a 3-bladed dagger, so you've got the 3 blades there. And I wanted to talk about it because I've actually never really heard anyone talk about it before. So I thought, you know what, I've been interacting with this for a while now. Let me see what it does, what it says. It's the Sanskrit name for it is kila, which means stake or nail. And according to this man called Robert Beer, he said the origins of this were an early creation myth. So, you know, you have these origin myths. How did this come into being? And the creation myth says that there was this great god called Indra. And he used, this in the vajra, you've got this central spike that runs through, yeah? And in a way, with the vajra, you've got this one part symbolises the negative and another part symbolises the positive. And it says, yes, the negative can be transformed into the positive. You can harness all emotion into something beneficial, or emotion. So the Indra, the god, took that central spoke, apparently a spike from the middle section of the vajra, and he used it to pin down the head of the great dragon serpent. And this great dragon serpent, so we're clearly in the realm of myth here, right? So you've got to just expand your imagination. So there was this great dragon serpent, and this great dragon serpent had wrapped its whole body, coiled its body round the sacred mountain, Mandara. And whilst its body was coiled around this sacred mountain, it began to stifle the mountain so that the mountain could not release the sacred waters of life. And people were then suffering. So the god took the central spoke, turned it into a phurba and a spike, and nailed the head of the dragon serpent. Well, I like that story because I thought there was something about the nailing of the obstacle. And there was also something about, two things I liked about that. I liked the fact that it just resonated with me because I thought, oh yes, that's what happens when we're feeling blocked. Yeah, when there's an obstacle, our energy feels blocked. Yeah, do you resonate with that? When something, you're going it's all going well, and suddenly there's like this boulder that's in the way. Yeah, sometimes it's small, sometimes it's big. The energies are blocked, and it's hard to move forward. And sometimes we don't even know why. It's like, why? I was doing that fine a while ago, and suddenly it's not working anymore. And people have that with their meditation as well. Yeah, it was all going fine. I was meditating away, and then I came back from retreat or something happened in the course of my life. I got busy at work, or something happened in the family, and suddenly I went back to sit on my cushion, and it just wasn't happening anymore. So there's something about this, the sacred waters of life represents a positive energy, and that we all need positive energy to feel connected to life. And yet sometimes it gets blocked, it gets dammed up. And so what Indra, the god, did was rather than go, oh well, God, there's nothing I can do about that, or what a shame, or it's too powerful, this serpent is too powerful, he basically was like, no, I need to nail down what the obstacle is. I need to really identify it. So really what the phurba says is that it's in a way start, for the vajra. You start with the vajra, you kind of remember that things can be transformed. Whatever your experience is, whatever your challenging experiences can be transformed. That's what the vajra says. But the phurba says some things are a bit more challenging, and you therefore need to nail it, to identify it and nail it, and to contain it really, so that it stops its destructive effect. And that image I had, if you talk about a stake or a nail, the image I had was like of a tent. I don't know if you put up tents. I'm not a great camper, but I remember when I used to go camping, the tent, if it was raining and windy, it was just a bit like really challenging to put up a tent. The bits would go flying off, and then somebody else would have to grab one side, and somebody else would have to grab another side. It was all chaotic at times, and I'd sometimes think, oh, help, just somebody help, But in a way, you're the tent is working when you get the pegs, and you nail down the cloth, yeah, and chaos is abated, and that's a bit like the phurba. So it's got three sides, it's got three spokes to it, and the first spoke, the first blade, is said to represent skillful means. So what's skillful means? And this just means, action, whatever action we take, we ensure that it's got a positive benefit for self and others. We're not doing anything that is just about ourselves or just about others. We're thinking what's beneficial for the whole. And that's because you're aware that actually actions have consequences. So you're taking actions that are going to have positive consequences for the whole. So that's skillful means. And the other blade represents the process of eradicating greed, hatred and ignorance. That's what a phurba is doing. It's basically eradicating what stops growth, what stops flow, what stops beneficial flow, what stops beneficial energy. So greed, hatred and ignorance is what stops our own beneficial flow, our own beneficial energy. So that's one blade. And the other blade is wisdom. What happens when greed, hatred and ignorance is eradicated is wisdom appears. So the less greed there is, the less hatred there is, the less ignorance there is, the more you see things clearly. Greed, hatred and ignorance, we're so habituated to it, we don't really see it really until it's not so much there. It's almost like you sort of glasses, that used to become clearer and clearer and clearer until one day you don't sort of need them. You're seeing directly, what's really there. And wisdom is like that. You see things clearly and you see things in their wholeness. And you see the beauty and mystery and magic of life as well when there's wisdom there. So those are the three blades. So the phurba says there is a way to overcome the destructive and the really negative forces within ourselves and within the world. So I was thinking that it's near the beginning of the year still. We're the 22nd, isn't it, of January. I'm giving this talk. So on the retreat that I was in, some of you on the retreat, we set our aspirations, our resolutions. Out of interest, how many people set some form of resolution or aspiration, New Year's resolution? Okay, just about maybe over half, okay. I won't ask how you're doing with it because partly, if you're doing great, fantastic, but they do statistics about this every year or so about why people set resolutions and aspirations and what happens with them. So I found out statistics for this year, and it said, or they probably for last year, and it said 40% of, this is an American statistic, it says 40% of US adults set New Year's resolutions every year. So 40%, just under half. Almost 60% of them who set resolutions are under 35. So young people seem to set resolutions more than older people. I don't know what that means. You can make of that what you will. 50% of the resolutions are about exercising more. So it's the most popular New Year's resolution. It was one of mine, actually, as well. And all the top 3 resolutions are health related. So I thought that's interesting. So how many of them are still going after the first week? 23%. There's a few gasps. And how many are going in the first month? 23 quit in the first week. 23% quit in the first week. 36 make it past the first month. 36% make it past the first month. How many do you think go to the end of the year? Oh, a bit more optimistic. 9% successfully keep their New Year's resolutions. It's less than 1 in 10 of the people that set them. What's going on? What is going on here? Because I was thinking about that, the fact that people set the health ones are most common, I was thinking, well, yeah, we all want to feel alive, we all want to feel well, we all want to feel energy, yeah, we want to engage with life more. It just feels more satisfying the more we can give to it and the more we receive from it, right? So we all want that. And we also, if you think about it, it's about exercising, eating more healthily, quitting whatever habit we have that we know doesn't really serve us. There's a whole host of health, mental health in terms of meditation and things. So there's a whole host of health ones we could set. And usually when we set these resolutions, we know why we're setting them. Like we rationally, conceptually understand why we're doing it, yeah? And yet, most people give up on them. So what is really going on here? And I've asked this again and again, when I'm like, oh, what happened to that? Why did that fall off the wayside? What was going on there? And I also thought if we're setting resolutions, probably we're setting resolutions that are of benefit to ourselves in general and others as well. So it's unlikely, I think most people are not setting resolutions that I want to become more self-centered this year or I want to become angrier. We're probably not setting resolutions like that, so it all feels good. And so it made me think, we really need to understand more about our depths. We need to actually become a bit more fluent in what's going on in our depths, become more fluent in the language of the depths. Because part of what's going on is forgetfulness. We forget the reasons, we forget the point, we forget the experience that led us to make the resolution in the first place. Yeah, there were lots of conditions that probably led to that, and somehow in the course of a few weeks, even a few days, we're forgetting that. Also, some things start getting in the way and blocking our enthusiasm. We started off enthusiastic, we had an image of how we were going to be, and thought, yes, that's great, and suddenly our enthusiasm starts waning, and our energies towards that aspiration, towards that resolution, start becoming blocked. We begin to see things, less and less clearly. So whether that's, that whole moment of, I'm going to meditate tomorrow morning when I get up, I'm pressing the alarm, and instead of getting up, the snooze button goes on, or the phone comes out and the scrolling starts happening, or you think, I'm going to go to the class, and you think, oh no, you know what, I'm a bit tired after work, let me watch the Netflix or whatever. What is going on there? And what I think is going on is that within our unconscious, we have the positive motivations that we've made conscious, but within our unconscious, there is our negative habits, our destructive emotions, our views that are there. And in a way, they are lying dormant. Many of them are lying dormant, and they become active, more active, when we set ourselves a goal. When we say, right, I'm going to do this. This is, and you begin to really believe that you can, suddenly our dormant, destructive or negative emotions have something to engage in. It's almost like before that, everything's a status quo, yeah? Everything is like, oh, this is just how things are. Suddenly something new comes in, a new vision of yourself, a new possibility, and with that, when you start taking action on it, that's a key thing actually, when you start taking action on that thing that you envision, that you see, that's possible, then the sort of destructive or the negative that was always there starts getting activated. And it can happen quite easily. I remember I sort of signed up. I thought, right, there was a free at my gym. I hadn't been for a while, and I signed up for a free personal training session. And the gym instructor bounded up to me with a big smile on his face. I thought, oh, here we go. And I'd signed up for it. So I really, thought, yes, I had the vision. I wanted to do it. And then he comes all enthusiastic. I'm already thinking, oh, God, this is going to be hard. And then, he's like, well, try this and do that. And I immediately, I wanted to do it, but I immediately said, oh, no, I can't do that. And he was like, you haven't actually tried? I was like, yeah, but I don't think I'll be able to do it. And he said, okay, just imagine that you can, just have a go. And he was actually very good. He was very kind of like patient with me. But I sort of found myself sort of smiling because I remembered, my enthusiasm and my motivation. And I realized quite quickly that I wanted the outcome of the process. I wanted the outcome and I didn't really want to do the work. I didn't want that level of enthusiasm. I didn't want, all that positive energy. I somehow wanted to skip the process of the work and just get to the end. I didn't want to really be out of my comfort zone, really. I said that to him. I said, oh, it's a bit out of my comfort zone. And he said, yeah, that's the point. We have to get you out of your comfort zone, and that's where growth will be. And I know this. I've been living this for years. And yet, at that moment, I was like, oh, yes, this is a bit, I have to expand my own sense of what's possible for me. And be prepared to be a little bit uncomfortable until I get used to it. But right then, with me taking action, that old sort of part, that old voice that was like, just be comfortable, was becoming active. And it was meeting the part of me that was like, you can do this. You can do this, Suryagupta. You've got support as well. He's helping you. You can do this. Was being met with, oh no, that's a bit too much. So that's what's happened. And it might sound, in a way, this kind of, when we're sort of faced with those kind of situations, what we're really faced with is the sort of, the kind of classic or even archetypal or the even existential battle between growth and, a stagnation, between liberation and, oppression. We're really faced between light and dark. That's what's really going on with those daily choices. And if you can sort of see that that's what's going on, it actually changes how you approach it. Like in that moment for me, I was like, once I realised, oh, hang on a minute, what's going on here? I was like, okay, this is about me being a bit uncomfortable. This is about me kind of, this part of me, this old part of me that kind of wants to stay safe, that doesn't want to, take up too many challenges. That's an old part of me. And it's having to now confront a new part of me that says, you can do this. So if you start seeing it as this sort of existential battlefield, really, or that what really is the real struggle that lies at the heart of transformation, it changes how you then approach it, I feel. So this is where the phurba comes in, because the phurba is basically saying, there's gonna be those obstacles, those challenges that are gonna be so challenging, so sort of undermining, so potentially sabotaging, that we have to, rather than ignore it or hope it goes away or hope we can just harness the energy, we have to get very clear about what's going on and begin to identify that challenge and basically nail it. So, and this sort of goes right to the kind of heart of the Buddha's story as well. So we've got this wonderful story in the Buddha's part of the Buddha's story, which I really love, is where the Buddha himself, and that's the thing, the Buddha himself had this experience. So you've got Siddhartha. He is absolutely determined to become free. He is saying that no matter what happens, I'm gonna wake up. I'm gonna free myself from greed, hatred, and ignorance. And he has given up so much already. You know, he's given up his wealth, he's given up his status, he's given up comfort. He's already done so much development and training to get to this point. And he knows it's almost here. He's like, liberation is within his grasp. And he sits under the tree with his mound of kusa grass. And he says, flesh may dry up, flesh may wither away, blood may dry up, but until I gain enlightenment, I shall not move from this seat. So he has vajra energy. He's like, whatever's going on, he has that diamond thunderbolt right there. Whatever negativity I face, you know, I'm just going to keep going. I'm not going to allow it to stop me. So he's coursing through levels of consciousness, and he's breaking barrier after barrier after barrier. And he gets to the final barriers between him and the ordinary mind, if you like, and enlightenment and absolute ultimate freedom. And, there's forces within him, but there's forces without as well. And the forces in the universe that are negative forces in the universe. So if the universe is about light and dark, and actually, if you think about it, so much of our stories, are about the light and dark, aren't they? The good versus evil. So if that is a kind of universal battle, the negative forces are aware of what's going on with Siddhartha, aware of what he's about to do, and they get activated, they get alarmed, they get concerned. Because if he manages to do this, if he manages to become enlightened, he's going to be able to show other people the way as well. And that means that many people, as happened, many people have the path to freedom, can free themselves from oppression. And that's very scary if you're about oppression, right? So they get very alarmed and they start getting active. So what happens? So in the story, they talk about Mara appearing. So Mara means death, it means obstruction. And in the Buddhist story, it's a personified being. And it doesn't have to be a personified being, it could be a force, right? But in a way, it's easier for us to sort of visualize it if it's got some kind of form. So in the story, it's like a personified being comes and appears and says, "Oh no, this can't happen." And in the scene, the Buddha's sitting there. He's got this serene smile on his face. He's got this great aura around him, and he's just enjoying meditation. And Mara thinks we need to unseat him. We need to get him off that seat as quickly as possible. So in the story, what he does, he sends all these armies with weapons and these misshapen creatures. And, the images I have, if you've ever seen Lord of the Rings, you got tree trunks being pulled up. And there's this great scene of everything just being thrown at the Buddha. He's just being assailed by all these violent weapons. And in our thing, I think we can think about whatever it is that makes us afraid. Whatever makes us afraid is what's going to get us off our seat. So if you've got any phobias, don't like mice, or whatever it is, it's gonna be the thing. It's gonna be your version of that, basically. That was gonna think, I can't do this anymore, or it's a bit too much. So what does the Buddha? What happens? All these things are flying towards the Buddha, and the thing is, he has already dealt with his fear. He has already seen through his fear. He's been meditating in the jungle by himself for years. So he has had to face his fears. And because he's faced his fears, he understands the nature of fear. He knows, he can see through what fear is doing and what fear is about. So as these weapons that are designed to make him afraid come towards him, they don't have any effect on him because he's already transformed and understood and seen through, nailed his fear. And out of nailing his fear, what's emerged is confidence, fearlessness, and of course love as well, because he understands that behind fear is pain, is suffering, is contraction, and he has empathy for that. He has compassion for that. So what happens is these weapons come hurtling towards him, and the scene is they touch his aura. He has this great golden aura. They touch his aura and they fall down and they become flowers, and they rain around him. Flowers are raining all around him. Such a beautiful image. And when I first encountered that, it had quite a strong effect on me, actually, because I suddenly was like, all my ways to protect myself from what I see as challenges or hostility or criticism or whatever it is, they were defended. They were like, keep out, keep away, or sometimes moving towards it into conflict. And I realised, there's another way. There's another way I can do this. I can learn. I can see through the nature of what it is I'm afraid of, and I can bring compassion to that. I can bring empathy to that, and that will completely change not only how I respond to myself, but it will change how I respond to what I feel is hostile coming towards me. It's a very, very powerful image just to reflect on. So this is quite interesting about seeing the nature of something. He sees the nature of fear, and then what Mara doesn't give up. So our stubborn sabotaging influences don't just give up on the first, our first victory. They'll keep going. So next Mara thinks, okay, fear didn't work, violence didn't work, oppression didn't work in that way. I'm going to try the opposite. I'm going to send in something that lures him, not where he's running, but just where he's lured off his seat, And he's lured off his seat because it's so tempting that he just thinks, okay, let me just have my moment and maybe I'll come back to the seat, You've had that experience, you think, I'll just do this first because this is really what I want, and then I'll come back, So Mara sends his seductive daughters to lure the Buddha. And the Buddha's, he's been married, he's had relationships, he knows the pleasures of the body, the Buddha. So he's sort of like, Mara's thinking, this will get him, he will be reminded of, what he left behind at the palace. But of course, the Buddha is meditating, deeply engaged in all these levels of consciousness that are just opening up. After one barrier, his consciousness opens up and more expansion and more is revealed, and it's deeply engaging. And if you've ever sat in meditation and had, a concentrated meditation, you'll know that it's absolutely really pleasurable, and you don't want to be anywhere else. It's like you can just sit there for a very long time. And it's, I think the first time I heard that, maybe, I thought, really? And then when it happened to me, I was like, wow. And I remember somebody telling me about, I need to talk to you about my meditation. And I was like, what happened? They were like, It was so amazing. It was better than sex, you know. And I was just like, yes. But they were really shocked by that. And I thought, but that's what the teachings say. The teachings say that actually the pleasure that we can have through consciousness, through expanding consciousness, is more pleasurable than what we can have in the body. Yeah? The body is a kind of coarser version of experience. So the Buddha, with these daughters coming towards him, he's not even moved. He just carries on meditating. Doesn't say anything, doesn't glance. He just carries on. So that doesn't work. So the third obstacle, and he's seen through, because of course the Buddha has seen through craving. Yeah, he understands the nature of craving, and he knows that there's something about craving that the more you have, unskilled, like the more that kind of desire, the more you have, the more you sort of want, and it's a bit endless. So he doesn't need that anymore. And then the last thing is they send. Mara says, well, okay, that didn't work. I wasn't able to tempt him off. I'm going to try another, much more subtle way. So he just sidles up to the Buddha and says, so who do you think you are? Who do you think you are to think you're going to be the first to become enlightened? What makes you so special? And, the Buddha's like, I have been practicing for countless of lifetimes. So Mara then says, who saw you? Where's the evidence? So I really resonated with that voice, that kind of voice of, well, why you? What makes you so special? Or who do you think who you are to do this? It's a kind of insidious voice of doubt, basically. And it sort of takes away our confidence and it stops us from going forward. Yeah. So anyway, what the Buddha does on this occasion, he taps his hand to the ground, to the earth, and he summons the earth goddess. And the earth goddess appears and says, I'm his witness. I've been here forever, and I've seen him practicing lifetime after lifetime. The earth is his witness. And that's powerful too, because the earth is also our witness. It's a witness for all the things that we do. So I say, use that really positively. So any success you've had, any moment where you've been able to transform something or take a step towards your aspiration, towards your potential, the earth has witnessed that, and you can call on that. You can remind yourself of that. So the Buddha is basically, that's it. Mara run out of ideas at that point. He slinkers off. He does appear again later on in the Buddha story, but the Buddha attains enlightenment, and it's all good. So really, what in a way, what you've seen there is both vajra energy, but also the phurba. Because what's happening is the phurba's been able to, when you've got the energy of the phurba, you identify the obstacle, you see it clearly, you see into its nature, and once you see into its nature, it loses its power over you. It can no longer dictate and control you. And that is the power of the phurba. It's a bit like, I was maybe on being on retreat, I was sitting opposite somebody who wrote horror movies for a living. And she said it was fun. And I was like, oh my God, I can't imagine that being fun. But she said, oh no, it's really great, And actually I have spoke to my son about, because my son does film as well, and he can watch all kinds of stuff. I'm sure it has an effect actually. But he's like, no mum, it's not real. And I'm like, I know it's not real, but it still looks real, right? And that's the nature of seeing through something. Like it looks real, it feels real, and horror movies are massively popular. They make a lot of money out of horror movies because they know, the industry knows that fear grips us. Yeah, it grips us. We're fascinated by it. We're always trying to think, okay, how would I respond? What would I do if that was happening to me? And it keeps us in our sway. Yeah, it keeps us really focused on it. But if you work in the film, if you've been behind the scenes, you know it's digitally created and somebody was in their bedrooms or their offices doing stuff on the computer to create that image. You know that there's flake blood. You know that how they've strung it all together. And basically you look at it and think, oh yeah, that was fun. You don't take it seriously because you know how it was constructed. You know what it's made up of. And that is what it feels like to see through into the nature of experience, to see through our obstacles. You know what it's made up of, you know all the conditions that led to it, you know that it's essentially made up of lots of different things, and if you can see all that, it's like it's an illusion. And then you're no longer afraid. The phurba gets us to do that. And there's just 4 types of maras. So maras, death and destruction, and it's kind of helpful. So when you're having your experiences, rather than just think, oh, what's going on, it's an obstacle or a challenge, see if you can get clear about what kind of challenge is this? What kind of obstacle is this? You know, already if you're starting engaging it that way, you're already getting a bit sort of closer to it and not just kind of keeping it at bay or trying to repress it. So there's 4 types of maras. There's a maras, if you like, of what they call maras of aggregates. And this is the mara of being embodied. We have a physical body. We have experiences of having a physical body. We have pleasant experiences. We have unpleasant experiences. There's not much we can do about that. So I might be walking, and we have thoughts and feelings that come a bit randomly. So I might be walking along, happy as Larry, happy, you know, enjoying my day, the sun's out, lovely, everything's lovely, and then somewhere a thought enters my mind that makes me go, oh, you ever had that? Yeah? It's like, oh, or a feeling in the pit of my stomach, just by a thought that entered. And it's like, where did that come from? And then it can, if we're not careful, it can then take us down a bit of a spiral. Or we walk down the road happy, we trip over, you know, or go at work, somebody's a bit critical to us. That is, and then our response is unpleasantness. Yeah, that can just happen. That's normal. That's part of having a body and being embodied. But where Mara can come in is that's also an opportunity, isn't it, of a downward spiral like that point. So just from having a body and having pleasant and unpleasant experiences and pleasurable experiences, we can it can be an opportunity for a block to come in. So that's the Mara of aggregates. There's a Mara of death, and this just says life is short. Change happens, things are impermanent. So as a result of that, it gives us a sort of insecurity because we don't really know how long we all have. We don't know how long if we're having a great experience, we don't know how long it's going to last as well. So that gives us a bit of insecurity, and again, that's where Mara can come in. That's where that doubt can come in. That's where we can start acting in unskillful ways because we're trying to hold on to things. Then there's a Mara of ignorance, and this is just all our negative habits, our disturbing emotions, our addictions. And again, we're all going to have emotions that are challenging. We're all going to have irritation, and the Buddha didn't uproot his hatred until right towards the end of his experience, yeah, towards enlightenment. So it's going to be there. Again, how are we responding to that? And that's where Mara can come in. There's always a choice with how we respond to our experience, including our negative emotions. And then lastly, there's a Mara, or it's called the Mara of the sons of the gods. And this Mara symbolises craving and pleasure, comfort. So that's me in the gym. Like I didn't want to be uncomfortable. I remember when I was running, I sort of entered a race, to do a 5K one year. Those couch to 5K things. I was really flat. I'm definitely going to do this race. And then I could find myself I'd be set up everything in the morning, at night, so I'd be ready in the morning to go running. And then I'd wake up and I'd be like, is that rain? I think it could be rain. And I would watch myself doing it. And then I'd actually be disappointed if it wasn't raining, because then it was like, you're going to do it, you're going to have to do it. And it just was, that's the Mara of the sons of gods. I wanted to be comfortable, and I didn't want to be uncomfortable. So that's just what we deal with as human beings, yeah? And it's also the Mara that gets us to procrastinate as well. So if you're noticing procrastination happening, you could just go, oh, I'm terrible. I'm always like this. It's just me. Or you could just say, oh, this is a Mara of procrastination. This is a Mara of the sons of gods, yeah? What this does actually, when we begin to identify it in this way, it makes it less personal in a sense. We all have our own particular ways of being with our challenges that are sort of unique to us. But actually, this is just humanity. This is just what we as human beings deal with. And if you see it in that way, you think, oh, it's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing, it's just the nature of the way the mind works. And the clearer I get at managing and understanding it, the more I'm free of it. And there's all these other sort of secondary Maras as well, like the Mara of conflict, the Mara of distraction, the Mara of great desire. And the Mara of great desires is when things feel like it's never enough. Like, it's good, but you still want more. That's the Mara of great desire. There's a Mara of great attachment, when you feel like, well, you're very attached to things, or when you feel like you're being really generous, but it's like you're not really enjoying the generosity, or you feel like, okay, I want something back, from my generous acts. And then a Mara of turning your mind to distraction and away from your true path. The Mara of turning your mind to distraction rather than your true path, rather than your true potential, rather than freedom. So what do? How does a phurba help us with this? As I said, we start with the vajra. Can I harness the energy of this emotion? Can I transform the kind of distraction into something good, into something healthy, positive? We start with the vajra. And though, if we're finding something is really persistent, really stubborn, it just takes us down, and we've been working on it and trying all different means, it's still not happening, then we've got the phurba. We've got the kind of the heavy weight, and then what we need to do is see it through, understand its nature, see it clearly and nail it. And we do so lovingly. We sort of see the thing, we nail it down, we do so lovingly. We bring metta to the experience. Because we know that underneath the obstacles, underneath the obstructions, there is suffering. There is real suffering. So when we nail it down, what we're doing, we're saying, okay, this is just the obstacle. What you want then is to have the empathy to deal with the suffering that's behind that. Yeah, and then there's love. There's seeing clearly, and there's love. And then I also say, take positive action. Take small steps towards the positive. That's where ethics come in as well. When you're doing ethical actions, it helps you remind yourself, whilst I'm working with this big challenge, I'm doing something, positive as well. And I also say, connect with others, because when you connect with others in community, you go on retreat, for example, or you come here, you'll see people having their challenges. You'll hear about people's obstacles, and you'll also see the transformation that happens. And it's deeply inspiring when you've seen somebody really, really struggling, and then they come out the other side and they're smiling, they're bright, their energy's, really available to them, and they've understood more about, life and themselves, and they're wanting to give. And that's what happens when you're really engaged in the process of transformation. So, become curious. Find a symbol. Find a symbol and just get familiar with it. Have it with you. See what it does. All Buddhist symbols are there for transformation. and to show us something about ourselves, about others, about the nature of life, and for transformation. And as you can see, the phurba now is, I don't know how I'm going to give this back actually, because it's just such a gorgeous one. But I do love my one as well. And the phurba is now one of my favourite symbols. So thank you. Yeah.